Thank you, Mayor. I was just putting my thoughts together here. First of all, we want to recognize one of our outstanding city employees. We had a recognition ceremony last week where 11 of our employees were nominated by their peers as employees of the quarter, and all 11 were excellent examples of public service and the kinds of employees that we can be extremely proud of. There was one that stood out amongst the rest and received the recognition of being the employee of the quarter, and that was Danny Alacatera. Danny here. Danny, would you stand up and be recognized? Danny works at the Animal Control Services and has done an excellent job there. In a moment, I'm going to turn some time to Chief Rocha to talk through, in fact, why don't we do that now, Chief? Chief Rocha has the presentation on our city performance report, and when he's through, I do have a couple of additional items.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Hello, Mayor, Council. It's my honor and privilege to present a couple of items to you. The first item I'd like to talk to is the CPR performance for the fire department. It is separated into three segments there. There's the baseline information, there's the operational profile, and then there are the mission elements and goals that are set out, and really those correspond with the fire department's business plan. And with those 7 major elements, we've selected a couple of the goals to discuss. I'd like for you to pay special attention to the baseline information that is listed there. One of the difficulties and the challenges the fire department has is that we track our items into calendar year, and the difficulty is translating that into fiscal year. We are in that process, and by using Excel spreadsheets, we're able to glean the information both through the fiscal year and through annual calendar year. I enjoy the luxury and the privilege of doing it by calendar year because most of my peers across the United States do theirs per calendar year. So for example, when you're talking about structure fires per year, fatalities per year, things like that, those are listed per year. And for your reading enjoyment, those 4 years are listed in the baseline information. You'll also notice that throughout our calls for service are increasing from calendar year 09 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, and we're forecasting those to increase again. In particular, attention, our medical calls for service are increasing, which is going to lead me into my second presentation, which I'll give you an update on the 3-month performance of the new medic units that we put into service. Our operational profile is consistent with what we've done in the past, with the exception of the additional 2 ambulances that are listed. Most of those stay the same. We are at 414 authorized. We have 17 fire stations, 22 fire companies, and then the items that are listed above there are the bullet points, our services that we provide the community. I would now like for your attention to move to the mission elements that are listed there. Obviously, the top 2, response to our fire suppression calls and a response to our emergency medical calls, are very important to the fire department. And what you see as goals listed there are only a limited number of goals that we have. The fire department tracks probably 50, 60, 70 different other elements of performance measures that we track, but these are the highlights that I wanted to share with you today. Our responses to fire calls obviously is something that the fire department takes a lot of pride in, and we enjoy a very good response time. One of the changes that I want to make on that is the targets for the first and the third one should actually be 4 minutes, and I've sent communication to have that changed. 4-minute response times, and what those are consistent with NFPA standard are for the fire service, and so I want to make sure that those are changed. However, it does not change the performance of the firefighters, which is outstanding in terms of meeting getting very close to the 4-minute response time on our structure fire calls, on our all calls, and then we're doing very well on our response to medical calls. Our fire prevention activities, led by Fire Marshal Andy Cardiel, has done an outstanding job in terms of the number of participants or people that attend fire safety presentation. As you'll see in the first quarter, it looks like that's a pretty high number, and the reason for that is Andy and his personnel are doing school visits. October, as you know, is Fire Prevention Month, and during this month, we're going to experience a lot of presentations, and so our numbers are going to be high, and then what you'll see is they'll level out throughout the year. One of the charges I also gave Andy was that he and his personnel are now going to investigate every structure fire in the city of Corpus Christi. And so you're going to see some numbers there where in fiscal year 12 and 13, the number of fires they investigated were 82. You'll see that so far this year, in this fiscal year, he and his team have investigated 34 fires. What we're going to be looking for is the number of fires investigated is going to number the fires, number of structure fires that we suffered. And so we're going to be looking at that. Chief Cardiel is also responsible for code enforcement of the fire code, and it is our desire to provide a safe and fire-free community. And what you're going to see is that fire code violations, although we have a target of 95% reach within that 30-day time period, this first quarter we've actually achieved a little bit less than 30%. The reason is I've got a number of people that are responsible for fire education, code enforcement, but also fire investigations. And so far the concentration in the Fire Prevention Bureau has been that public education. However, on these ones where we issue a citation for fire code violations, obviously the ones that are life-threatening, the ones that are the most severe are the ones that Andy and his team concentrate on. And then we're going to see those numbers go up as the year goes on. Billy Delgado is in charge of our Emergency Operations Center, and I wanted to highlight the work that he's done. What you see there for fiscal year 13-14 is a 21% compliance rate. We've got 28 departments within the city that have to submit emergency operations plan. And so far this year, he's about a quarter of the way through the year where he's gotten plans from some of the departments. In previous fiscal years, I had him concentrate on the 7 critical departments, fire, police, streets, some of the other departments that were critical, is why you see a low number in the fiscal year 12 and 13. What you're going to see in the future is you're going to see 100% across the board in future out years. What our plan is that each department within the city of Corpus Christi has an emergency operation plan submitted to Billy for his review. And then also it's the goal of the fire department to have 100%, actually 90% of our personnel trained in hazmat, technical rescue, and water rescue, those who are members of those teams. And right now we're enjoying a 98% compliance rate.
Excuse me, Chief Rocha. Ms. McIntyre, did you want to ask your question? Okay, she'll have a question afterwards.
And I think that pretty much summarizes the CPR report for the fire department. And for this segment of my presentation, I'm open for questions.
I just want to thank you for very thoroughly going through that and kind of predicting those 2 areas that we might have had questions and coming back with what the plan is for increasing those percentages. And I really appreciate the thoroughness of your report.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, this is very enlightening and consistent and kind of gives you a pretty good direction of some trends here. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to, Rick, if you can go to the next slide. I'd like to then go to the next presentation that I have for you. And I wanted to come back and present to you, Mayor, and to the council an update on the first quarter impact of the 2 ambulances that we placed in service. As you remember, we previously operated with 9 ambulances, saw that the call volume was high in some of the parts of town. We opened up 2 more ambulance units, and I'm happy to report that if you take a look at the handout that you received, page 1, in the upper left-hand quadrant, you'll see that the total calls for May through to July, which is the 3 previous months, totaled 9,200 calls, 9,212. Total calls for August through October, if you remember, August 1st was when we implemented the ambulance program, was almost the same, 9,214 calls. During the first segment, the May through July, you'll notice that the medic units at number 10's fire station, number 8's fire station, and number 1's fire station experienced a call volume of about 15, 16 calls per day. If you then look at the second 2 columns where the total calls for August through October and the average calls, you'll notice that the additional medic units, which was Medic Unit 3 and Medic Unit 6, were able to absorb some of those calls. And what you're seeing is a balancing of the call volume where you've got a number of the ambulances, double-digit average per day, but you're not seeing the 14, 15, 16 calls. You're seeing the busy companies doing 12 and a half calls a day. And so one of the outcomes that we wanted to experience with the additional 2 ambulances, we were able to achieve by the balancing of the call volume. If you take a look at the segment in the upper right-hand quadrant, what that is the percentage of total calls by the department. And you'll see once again, those numbers are pretty consistent where Medic Unit 8, Medic Unit 10, Medic Unit 1, and Medic Unit 14 were experiencing high percentages of calls. Those percentages with the activation of Medic Unit 3 and Medic 6 have balanced that also, and each and every single medic unit has seen a decrease in its workload. One of the other areas that we wanted to monitor was our unit hour utilization. That's how busy our units are. And really, based from the TriData study, TriData thought that we needed to be around the 25% unit hour utilization. And although we're not able to achieve 25% on all of them, we were able to see a decrease in every single medic unit was able to decrease its unit hour utilization. And so we're looking for the continuation of monitoring that. And so far, we've been able to decrease the average calls per unit from around 1,023 calls to around 837 calls in the second three-month period that we were monitoring. So overall, I'm happy to report that we've been able to decrease the average call volume to the units. We've actually seen a reduction in a response time, and this response time reflects the dress-out time as well as the travel time from around 6 minutes and 42 seconds for our ambulances to 5:57. So we're very happy with the decrease in response time. We think that the decrease is because twofold. One is the 2 units that we placed in the service were placed in the busiest part of towns. And secondly, what we saw was we were less reliant on the outlying medic units to come in and cover areas of town. So the medic units at 13s, 15s, and at 2s were able to stay in their stations more and then make those response times better than what they were in the past. So we're happy about the response time. We were able to reduce unit hour utilization in all units, especially the busiest units, 1s, 8s, 9s, 10s, and 14s. And the question now is, with the new firefighters coming out, we've got 15 coming out later this month. We've got some more coming out in the first quarter of next month, what to do with the additional personnel that we're going to utilize. And so maybe one of the possibilities may be to look at the possibility of opening up a medic unit at number 7's fire station, using existing personnel, using existing resources, or turning those people and putting them on fire trucks for future 4-person staffing. Page 2 of my presentation on the medic unit operations just highlights each of the medic units and the decrease in the call volume each has experienced, the exception Medic 3 and Medic 6 showing their call volume, their average calls per day. And with that, that will conclude my update to the council and the mayor on the medic unit operations, and I'm open for questions.
Well, that's good management of workload, Chief. Mr. Loeb?
Chief, I want to say thank you for bringing this to us. You know, it was pretty controversial, and there were people who who didn't support this, and I'm glad that I was one of them that did support this, because I think, you know, a 45-second drop in overall response time for EMS citywide is a pretty substantial number given the low cost of doing this. I would say, you know, my vote, of course, your judgment is best on it, but if we can put another unit in the field and get response time even lower. What percentage of the overall response time is the actual travel time? Because I think if you peel the turnout time out and the response time from when people get a call out, I mean, we're talking a 25-30% overall drop in just the time it takes people to get to the call, or is it even higher?
It actually brings up a good point. Dress out time, which is the time from when we get the call to the time the men and women go out the door, is critical, and it's something that we've concentrated on. In fact, I highlighted in my report to you that this was something that we needed to work on, and what we do is we highlight that. So we think that part of the decrease in response time is that the men and women of the Corpus Christi Fire Department are getting out the door in a quicker fashion.
Okay.
I don't want them to drive any faster than what they drive.
Right.
But if they don't have to drive a long distance to meet that response time, then we think that's where they're achieving their successes. Because they're positioned in areas in which the call volume was high, we think that was an effect. By keeping the ambulances in their home stations more, we think that had a positive effect. So we think it was a multitude of things. Dress out time usually, Councilman, it ranges from 40 seconds during the daytime to maybe a minute and 20 seconds at nighttime. Because if you're asleep, you have to wake up, get dressed, go. It's going to be a little bit longer. During the daytime, the men and women are generally ready for a call. When it comes, they get to the apparatus and get out the door.
Great. Yeah, because I think it's important for people to know that drop in response time is pretty good no matter what, but that in a lot of that is the time. I mean, we measure response time from when the 911 operator picks up to when the EMS truck gets there, and the big change we made, adding more EMS trucks, just affects that final portion of the call. So it's a huge, and it shows. I remember when we were talking about it, you were saying, well, one of the things that this will do is it'll make it so we don't have to pull the ambulance off, for instance, the island or the one out in Cow Island, to make a response, you know, along SPID or on the west side. And I mean, we all know that that's a 15-minute drive or a 10-minute drive, even with the lights on and everything. So just moving the same personnel around and buying a little bit more equipment, I think, was hugely effective. So I want to thank you. I want to thank the city manager for bringing this to us, and I'm really happy that this was the result. I was expecting a good result. I wasn't expecting it to be this good, but thank you guys so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Loeb. And thank you, Chief. Mr. Olson, do we have anything else?
I do have a couple of additional items. This past week,
I apologize. Miss Leal just put on her light. Miss
Okay.
Leal?
Chief, can you tell me where Medic 3 is? Where is it located?
Medic 3 is located at our fire station on Morgan.
Okay. Because I did notice that the average costs in that area are significantly high. And what area exactly does that medic respond to?
That's a good question, Councilwoman. When we decided and we're looking at locations of where to put medic units, I consulted with Dr. Dan Roberts, who is our medical authority or our medical director. What he does is he does quality control, and he tracks every cardiac arrest that occurs within the city of Corpus Christi, and came back to me and said, hey, the area in which most of the cardiac arrests occur are around station number 3, which is at Morgan, Staples, SPID area. And so that was an area in which I wanted to concentrate on in order to improve our delivery of service.
But I mean, what areas exactly, excuse me, does it cover? I mean, is it from, does it cover the island? Not the island, I'm sorry, North Beach? I don't think so.
It's in town, ma'am. Morgan Street, in between Staples and SPID, over in the area by where the hospitals are, in between the two hospitals, Memorial and Spawn.
Right, but I'm sure it's a bigger area than just that one.
Well, actually, all medic units were required to cover the entire city. Its primary area of operations is that area in between Fire Station number 8, Fire Station number 1, Fire Station number 3, and Fire Station number 7.
Okay, because that fire station's been there for a long time.
Yes, ma'am. It's one of the oldest fire stations we have in town.
Okay. I was just noticing the significance of the increase of clientele, I'm going to say, pickup. So it's really something, because it's one of the highest, actually.
It just goes to show you that the ambulances that were there before, prior to the implementation of number 3s and number 6s, were having to cover that load, as well as the ambulance units throughout the rest of the city were having to come in and help with that workload.
Okay. And where is Medic 15?
Medic 15 is on the island.
Okay, because that has a 2.32 average call.
Right, and really, it's important that we take a look at the geographical areas that are covered, even though some of those may not have a high call volume. What we want to do is make sure that we want to have response times that are productive and conducive to good outcomes. And so I really like the concept, because geographically, 15s and 13s kind of sit on the island, and Flower Bluff are very important, because they may not have the call volume that the in-town medic units have, but they serve a critical role in helping us with our response times to those areas.
And I agree. Even though that is low, I believe that we do need the medics on the island for I'm sure they have a lot of emergencies, but
Yes, ma'am.
maybe they don't have a daily response. That they need is just occasional, and I'm glad that it is occasional, if any. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Leal. Mr. Olson?
Last week, we sold $97 million worth of bonds. This has been pre-planned. It was part of the budget and previous discussions with the City Council. The market for those bonds was extremely good. It was in our favor. And in the process of selling those $97 million of utility system bonds, we saved over $1 million in interest that we had anticipated having to pay. So we felt real good about that transaction.
That's always good news to save money.
Yes. On Monday, December the 16th, the Coast Guard the Stonewater project that we talked about for a long time in building a new Coast Guard facility at our airport will have a groundbreaking. This will be at 10 o'clock, December the 16th at the airport. There'll be a number of dignitaries invited and included, including you, Mayor, and the City Council. You'll get more information on that, but I just wanted to tell you that was coming. And then the final thing I wanted to mention, as you know, I've been concerned for quite a while about the evolution of our ethical behavior for our organization. We have done training sessions and put a lot of emphasis on being an ethical organization, and I feel like it's time to take the next step in that evolution. I've handed out to you a copy of a proposed city policy, a revised policy. We have an ethics ordinance that has been on the books for many years. We've reviewed that ordinance recently and compared it to other cities and kind of measured it against the benchmark standards. It's a good ordinance. I don't see any reason that we need to amend or change the ordinance that we have. As with most of our ordinances, we also have administrative policies that implement that ordinance. That's what you have in front of you today. is the administrative ordinance, or administrative policy that supports that ordinance. I'm proposing some changes to that policy. In the draft that I've given you, the red and green portions of it are amendments to the existing ordinance. And what that does is gives further guidelines to city staff in how to apply the ordinance that the council has adopted. And a couple of key portions that I will just mention that we're talking about is city meals for city employees. There are times when employees are invited to lunch or dinner or other kind of quasi-business related activities where an outside party will purchase the meal for them. And we're gonna amend that to say you can still do business on a meal, but you need to pay your own way and don't let somebody else pay for that. Gifts that are offered to city employees from time to time, sometimes during the holidays, sometimes during other periods of time, we're going to restrict the receiving of gifts and ask that employees not accept gifts from outside parties. There are times when we're invited to attend various kinds of activities where companies or corporations purchase tables at an event. We're going to say that that's okay if the event is intended for charitable purposes to raise money for a charity of some kind. I think that would be okay for our employees to accept invitations to do that. We have times when employees are invited to various forms of entertainment, and that's a whole variety of things. Some of it's pretty minimal, some of it's pretty exotic. We're going to prohibit that kind of activity on the part of employees and say, essentially, we expect that you will not do that. There may be a unique case, especially in our intergovernmental relations areas, that I would provide an exception to, but they will be extremely limited. Drawings and door prizes for attending various kinds of events, we're going to ask city employees not to accept those. And various kinds of donations are sometimes solicited and sometimes offered for various kinds of city operational purposes. And the only one that I can see now that we might want to deal with is during our United Way campaign. We do have some sponsors that help raise money that is then contributed to charity. And I think there might be a room for some very limited exceptions there. If you would kindly look at this ordinance, my intent is to put this into effect after the first of the year. I'm soliciting input from assistant city managers and department heads on it now. And if any of the council has any comments, I'd appreciate receiving them at some future time. Feel free to contact me and give me your thoughts on it. But my intent is to refine this to a conclusion and put it into effect the first business day of 2014.
Thank you for your leadership.
And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.